Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another weekend virtual cafe. I'm excited to have you here today. This is a topic that's certainly caught the interest of a lot of business owners in our region, the idea of putting AI and Chat GPT to work for your business. So that's what we're going to chat about today. This is a little bit different than our regular workshops, which are a little bit more instructional and tutorial, but this is definitely going to be a chance for you to participate in the discussion, maybe ask questions, contribute ideas, or you could just listen if you want to as well. So I hope that you'll feel free to do that today. Why don't you go ahead in the Zoom chat? We always like to encourage people to introduce themselves. Let us know what your business is, perhaps, if you want to include a link to that business so people can follow you, get to know you better. That's why we don't use the webinar format. We use this call format so that you're able to network and you're able to link to each other. While you're doing that, I'll take a moment to acknowledge that Queen's University is situated on the ancestral territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples. And some of you may know that June is National Indigenous History Month, which is very exciting. And so I was thinking today that if some of you were interested in learning a little bit more, not just about history, but about Indigenous women-owned businesses in our region, I believe the Cataraqui Indigenous Market continues this year as well at Springer Market in downtown Kingston. So I'm going to put a link to that right now in the chat in case anybody wants to check that out. I highly encourage you to, if you can't even make the market, check out the link because there's a lot of really wonderful businesses owned by Indigenous women, some of them on this call right now, who are a part of the weekend community, but of course also the greater Kingston region. So thank you and miigwech. All right, so today I want to jump into this discussion. It's not going to be just me chatting away, of course. I want to start off with a poll just to find out where some of you are at with using AI and Chat GPT. So you should see a poll on your screen. Tammy, maybe I'm seeing you behind it. Can you give me a thumbs up if you're seeing that? Okay, great. So go ahead if you feel comfortable participating. Have you ever used AI or Chat GPT in your business? By the way, this is an anonymous poll. And so what I'm seeing right now is we've got 25%. Oh, that's moving a little bit. Let me just hold off while some of you find your poll button there. Okay. I think I can actually end it and share it. So we have 28% of you say, yes, you use it all the time. 44% say you use it occasionally, and 28% say not yet. So about an even split of those who use it all the time and those who have not yet used it. So that gives us a bit of an idea. And I think that that's probably representative of most business owners today, is that we know it's there. Some of us have tested it out a little bit. And today we want to talk a little bit more about how we can use it efficiently for our business. And is there a benefit that we can get from it? Now, I will say that one thing we're not really going to do today, I don't anticipate, is debate the pros and the cons of AI. All right, we realize that just like the internet, there are downsides of AI. I remember when the internet came into being, that's how old I am, and some of you are with me, when everyone thought that books would die, no one would go to libraries, all those things. We've certainly just seen it create a new space rather than necessarily wiping out everything else that exists. So I'm going at it with that lens today, although I do realize there's a lot of debate around AI and ChatGPT. So the first question I want to throw out, and I think the way that we'll respond today is if you could use your button on your Zoom. So there is a reaction button. For those who've never used it, at the bottom or somewhere on your screen, it should say reactions. If you click that, it should give you the chance to raise hand. And so that's what we'll use because there's a larger group. And if you simply can't find it and you want to put your hand up, your physical hand, I'm okay with that too. For those of you who simply want to add your comments in the Zoom chat, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Okay. I want everyone to feel comfortable to participate today. So the first question I have is, for those of you who have used it, and that's quite a number of you, how are you using it? And so I'll invite you to keep your comments to about 2 to 3 minutes at the most. So we're going to kind of do rapid fire so we can get to as many as we can. So for those of you today who have used it in the past, How are you using it, or how have you used it? And Joanne, we'll start with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So, yeah, initially I didn't want to use it. I said, no way, I'm never going to use it. And then when I did, it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. So I used the free version of the Chat GPT. And initially it was to help me because I didn't want to be a fraud. So it was to help me with my blogging. And I said, so what I did is I started using it. Okay, give me a topic, or what are the 3 things I can talk about this, or how can I approach it? And then I had at least a foundation, and then I would put in my own story. I would add my own anecdotes and things like that. And also I've been using also for I've been starting to write more in French, more content in French, because I want to serve also this community because I am bilingual. However, I feel I write better in English. So I've been using it to translate the idea, the concept, and all this. So, and that has been working very well. So that's how I'm using it. And lately also for my own, even my own sometimes insecurities. I ask for advice and it's awesome.
It's like you can talk to it. It's literally like you're chatting. And for those who
Yeah.
haven't tried it, it's very interesting. I'll share my experiences at some point. But thank you, Joanne, for that. Very interesting with the translation. I hadn't even thought of that. So that's very interesting. Jade, over to you.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I've used 2 different ones. I've used Chat Sonic for a year, and then I used Chat GPT. Chat Sonic I found was more expensive, and then Chat GPT is much cheaper, and it does have the free version. I like Chat GPT more. That's what I'm with currently. I've used it for social media post ideas to kind of like help flush them out or give you a schedule. I've used it to help create continuing education content, again, with my own concepts in mind, because everything is prompted through you, and then building on that. I've used it for questionnaires, quizzes, or feedbacks. I've also used it to actually read out some of my scripting for me to increase the amount of output I have for my continuing education. Some people love that, some people don't, hit or miss, but those are kind of the main things I've used it for so far.
Okay. And we're saying how we're using it. We aren't explaining like the process, which some people like, when you say that, what do you mean? And so we'll get to that, but let's just hit on some of these ideas. First of all, I love that, Jade. Leah, over to you.
ChatGPT I use for making adjustments for my English. It's a lot safer for me. Sometimes I get an email and I could spend 3 hours trying to get my thoughts together and figure out the correct structure. And now I just put my thoughts randomly into ChatGPT and then it provides me with something and then I will change things. I don't commonly use phrases like firstly or additionally, so I will edit what is given to me afterwards, but it helps me to save some time in order to respond. Similarly, for my presentations, I will put ideas down and then it helps me to organize my thoughts. Sometimes my brain is a mess. You should see my notes. I'll have them all over the wall and I'm trying to organize them. That was the old way. And now I put my random thoughts into ChatGPT and it organizes it for me. It helps me a lot because English is my second language. So it's a bit of a struggle. Now it's much easier. And I feel like it's more professional. I do make edits to it so that it sounds more like me. Sometimes it's so formal in the language that it's using. So I will use a more plain English, if you'd like to call it that, and do those edits to make it sound like it's me. And also it offers me the opportunity to learn some other things. I'm also paying for mine. The free one was good, and I know that people have access to that information. If they're paying to it, then if I'm paying for the service, then it means that it's limited how many people have access to the information, so that we're not sharing all of the same ideas. So I've been playing with that a little bit.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And I've never used a paid version, just to let you know. So I'm curious. I've never used that. So that's very cool. Thank you, Leah. Tammy, over to you.
Thank you. So I started with Canva. Canva actually has really cool free options in there whole program. Some of it is to create a post. You can create images. Like there's lots of different options within Canva. And I think, that's where it might go, is that each system might have its own artificial intelligence that'll make it, hey, by me. But so I use Canva, and I do have the paid subscription for Chat GPT version 4.1. And I just heard them saying that the version 5 is going to outshine anything that we've been using up until this point. So it's still an incredibly rapid moving industry. I use it to create things. I use it to, come up with responses to questions, create quizzes, top 10 this. But then I also use it to reword. So I know my language might be suitable for one type of person. Leah, you can actually tell it how you want it to sound. So you say, in the voice of a female entrepreneur, using fun language, trying to target 40 to 50-year-old women, reword this idea, and they will come up with like a really great option. Yes, I'll massage it to put in, my own whatever. Sometimes, honestly, I don't massage it, and I just really like what they've put in, but it's asking it the right questions. I find the important thing of the Chat GPT is to ask the questions that are pertinent to you and to drill down and ask not important, but really specific, niche questions.
Yeah, the more specific you can be, I think the better the response and more helpful the response is.
And in this, I just want to add like kind of I keep it so like if I have an idea on, handy woman stuff, on using a tool or on using a drill, I'll have 2 folders going, and I can go back and continue a conversation weeks later and actually add pleasantries. It's kind of creepy. I work by myself. I'll say, thank you very much. It's like, you're welcome if you have another idea. So it's a little bit.
It does sound like a person. It always says, that is a great question, Carrie, or whatever, right? So it is like you're talking to a bit of a robot. And Joanne, I'm not totally monitoring the Zoom chat. I see there's a lot of comments, but Joanne did say something. If you don't get the response you want, you can say, try again. And I've done it before where I might say, give me 10 solutions for, and then I might say, give me 10 more, because I didn't like those ones. So you keep the conversation going. I know with the free version, I'm not able to return to previous conversations. That's one downside, but so far it hasn't really bothered me at all. I always start fresh searches, I guess. But to Tammy's point, with the paid version, you can go back and continue a conversation, which actually might save you some time. So that's cool. Denise, yes, over to you. I believe Denise is coming to us from Winnipeg, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I am.
Denise,
Good morning,
I was
everybody.
born in Winnipeg. I just have to say that.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Welcome.
Well, yeah, I love this conversation. I was just going to chime in that we've been using Microsoft AI. So it was first discovered in Edge. If you have an Edge browser, you've got AI right at your fingertips. It's in the top right corner. There's a symbol that looks kind of like a bee or a weird blue symbol. If you click on that and it pops out a window in the browser, we found that to be fantastic, and it's free, completely free. So that's in the Edge browser. And then we actually paid for the Copilot, Microsoft Copilot at one point for our business. And we actually reverted back to the free Microsoft tool because there wasn't much difference with the paid version, and it wasn't cheap annually. I mean, sure, it was integrated in Word and PowerPoint, and we thought that it might be a handier tool to convert Word docs into PowerPoint presentations. And we did try it for that, but it just wasn't quite where it needed to be. So yeah, the free tool has been awesome. And I totally agree with the more you put into your prompts, the higher quality responses that you get. So we're in the process of writing franchise manuals now. So I'll say, write me a section on, the vehicle requirements for a franchisee, and we want to include X, Y, Z, and kind of you're putting in so much that you almost feel like you've written the section, but yet it polishes it. And similarly with emails, hey, can you polish this email? And that just kind of smooths it right out. So those have been the top 2 uses for us.
And that's really smart to use it in the native programming you're already using rather than going outside. It just saves you some time. And I did put a link to that Microsoft Edge there for anyone. It's interesting. When I went to the site, it said, this is already installed on your laptop. I'm like, oh, right. So sometimes we don't even know what's on there. Very interesting. Okay, so that's really cool. Thank you for sharing how you're using it. I think those are some of the different ways. And you've heard, I think, some tips, but I wanted to go now to sort of tips and advice. One of the things we certainly heard was to be specific in the way that you ask questions. Are there any, things that we can share with each other in terms of this works better when you do this, or, any words of advice, what you've experienced so far in using this tool? I will say the other thing I heard quite a few times was I then add my own, spice to it. I then rewrite or tweak it, which I think is always good for us so that, it's more unique. Tammy, what are your thoughts on that?
How important it is to rewrite it. One time I was lazy. It was a really long thing and I didn't read the whole thing, and it was in a Canva experience, and Canva is from Australia, and they referred to, I think it was the boot, like a trunk. They said trunk.
Oh, yes.
Crap, like, so it really is important to read the whole
It
thing.
was like, Tammy, what do you want me to put in my boot? How do I do that? That's so true.
I think it's important to ask, to really, really drill down on your prompts and have a formula. I wrote down a formula. I had notes everywhere, and kind of know what your language is and what exactly. Like, I want to know this. I want it to sound like my audience is grade 10. The average person can only absorb so much information, not to be too technical. Is it, is it female? Is it, don't say, and you know what? Don't be afraid to say, don't sound like it's art, like you've generated it. Because there are things that can, I think that moving forward, Google is going to say, okay, if it's generated by AI, it's not going to be pushed as much. But I feel asking as many questions as you can is the number one important thing when using it. Just don't put in, what are the top 10 things to do during a webinar?
Yeah, true. And just before we get to Carolyn, I wanted to add to that I come from an academic background. And so sometimes, to Tammy's point, you can plug in a paragraph that maybe you've written in, you're just an academic speaker or writer, and you can say, reword this for a grade 3 level, or where we know most of the population in Canada is about a grade 6 level, reading level. If that's just like the average, I think that's North America, not Canada, actually. And so then it rewrites it. And so it just saves you the time, and also really addresses some blind spots that you might not have realized you were using words that were just not a fit for maybe your audience. Carolyn, over to you. What are some thoughts around this?
Oh, I just wanted to say to Tammy as well, in England, they say boot as well. So they never use trunk. Yeah.
That's so true, right? And
I just wanted to share
and that's a good catch, Tammy. I mean, had you published it and then it came back and then you realized it, or?
I think it was because it was something I did with like windshield fluid, and I tried to come up with a social post, and it just it basically,
That's so funny.
it put it on, and I went back and changed it. So yeah, it's important.
I can see culturally how that would create some issues. Jade, what are your thoughts around this?
My one that came to mind, or an issue I guess I had with it when I was using it, because to Tammy's point, the prompts are so vital, and to continue to try if you don't get what you want. For my script reading one, I had, for a while, I was putting in read this, and then I would block in my information I wanted it to read, and it was doing exactly what I said. And then all of a sudden, after 20 in, it just decided to also rewrite a bit of it. So that following up and reading, and then prompting again, hey, read this, but don't add any additional information. Really, it is really, really important, and to check the work of it, because it's great, but it makes mistakes like people.
Yep. That human element we still need. thankfully, is still an important factor. And so very, very interesting. Tammy and then Joanne.
Sorry, I don't mean to monopolize the time, but I think
No.
with having the same thread, the reason why I like it is you don't have to re-say anything.
Yeah.
So you can go back and say, okay, take that idea, or if it gave me 10 options, I can say use option 1, 3, and 5 and put that into a paragraph. Like if it gives me point forms, or I can say, okay, now, manipulate it to say this. So you don't have, it'll just continue with your idea and you can shorten your questions by following the same thread. I think that's really something
Yeah.
that to
It's definitely more efficient. So if time is money for you, then it's more efficient to have the paid version. I'm still playing, like I say, in the sandbox with Chat GPT, but but I could see that definitely making sense. Joanne, over to you.
Yeah, just quickly, I've noticed and I've realized now that sometimes I just want it to check, not change anything. So instead of saying, because usually I would say, please make it better, but in reality, I just wanted to check that it's, it's okay. So if I wanted to just for it to just look at it as it like, is this okay? So I just say, is this okay? And then they would say, yeah, this is great. Or, you might want to do this. So, but if I'm just writing something quickly, I say, okay, please make it better, then they will change it. So I just started doing that recently and it's awesome.
That makes sense. And for anyone who might know, Muriel's asking in the chat, is there a website of prompts or what not to do tips you can recommend? I'm just gonna say, go on Chat GPT and ask them. No, just kidding. Like you can actually I've started thinking of Chat GPT as a search engine, right? It's more useful than Google, in fact. I find in many ways. So it's a joke, Muriel, but if anybody does have a website they'd like to put in the chat, please do feel free to share. Joanne, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to remind everybody, the information is it's before 2019. I think it's 2019.
Oh, interesting.
So any questions you ask for 2020 and beyond, it's not going to know the answer and it's going to tell you.
Okay, so I'm sure that's one of the things that as it gets better, it will be more real time. I can see how that could be improved, but that's definitely a downside that I didn't even know about that, but that makes complete sense. Yeah, that's very true. So one of the things I wanted to mention that I've used it for, so I have a Wix website for my personal business. Don't judge me if you don't like Wix. It's very easy and I can use it and I can create it. So I've created a Wix website. So of course you need SEO words, right? For people to find your website. So very often I've used it around blogging a little bit. And I will say using these SEO words, right? Rewrite this and insert these SEO words. So you could actually, because one of the reasons that we blog, besides to share information, is that when it's attached to our website, of course, as a part of our website, it drives traffic to our website because because Google is seeing our blog posts, which include keywords. And when people search for those keywords, our website comes up. And the more you blog, the more rich and detailed your website really is. And so that's how I've used it, is to ask for it to include some certain SEO words as well. And Leah says she does the same for hashtags. Leah, I want you maybe to explain that a little bit more, what you mean by that. Do you mean in blogs or social media?
Sometimes I will add work and then I will ask for hashtag ideas and then it will give me hashtag ideas and I will pick those, because sometimes I read through and it's like it's so ingrained. I need to step back a little bit to sort of see what hashtags might work. And so Chat GPT has been good in that regard for helping me to pick some of those.
Very interesting. Yeah. So for those of you who struggle with hashtags, just in general, that might be a tool you use. I know there's a lot of people who use hashtags that are so general that then they end up with all sorts of spam, right? And so if that's, I mean, this is another topic kind of entirely, but for those of you who struggle with that, Chat GPT might be able to help a little bit more. Tammy, your thoughts on that?
I actually wanted to pick up on something else that Leah said. When you get into a document and you put your heart and soul into it, the errors become part of the document.
Yeah.
And just like you said, it's good to say to put it in, and someone else mentioned it, is this correct? Am I in my previous profession, we didn't let anything go without it being peer vetted. It's so important. The more you get into something, the first error, it just becomes part of the document. And once they point it out, then you say, oh yeah, crap. But until it's pointed out, and especially with us working alone, for the most part, it's great to have that second set of eyes.
I was just gonna say that, Tammy, you've pointed out something. A lot of the women on this call, and you can say if you are in the chat if you want, I think a lot of you are solopreneurs or you have a small team. And it's like this, I'm a big believer in adding to your team, in different ways. I mean, this community for many of us is a tool, also is an extension of our solopreneurship. And having that set of eyes, I think that is really just a wise thing to realize that we have a lens. And I'll come back to that. But Jade, I'll have you go up next.
I was just going to say, and maybe other people are already doing this. I started putting you can attach a document now in Chat GPT, at least the paid version. So you could attach a document and then tell it like, hey, go through this document and like make slides from it, or make an outline from it, or make a handout for it, and all of that.
Wow.
So then it like increasing my output's really important, because like you just talked about, you're the one person show right now, or for a time. So to be able to do that just gives you so much more opportunity to then increase your income as well, right? Higher output, higher income. And it also depends on where you're pulling your client base from. But I found that to be incredibly helpful. Don't change your rates, but it's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, and I love that. Thank you. And just before we go to Leah, what is the fee for the pro or premium Chat GPT?
Tammy, is it 31? Is it 31 US dollars?
I think so. It's
Okay.
I think it's like maybe 24.
Yeah, somewhere in this range, $24
Around
to
that.
$30.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mhm.
So it's a dinner out. Let's just say that it's a dinner out with wine at the very least, or yeah. So it's nothing that I would say that we can't afford necessarily. And I like your point, Jade. Higher output, higher rates. Is that what you said?
I said higher output, increased income, but don't change your rates.
Don't change your rates. Yes.
Even though now you've figured out, or you have this tool, so now you can work faster, don't adjust your time on that. If your rate has already been set, don't move it. Don't move it.
It's like you've outsourced a little bit. Okay, yeah. Leah, yes, over to you.
I think you said Chat GPT is going to level 4 or 5 or whatever. I did a trial and it gave me the opportunity to upload a photo. So I did. For the description, it went on a little bit, but it saved me a lot in terms of how I describe things for like those visual descriptions. And so it gave me a description of the photo that I made modifications to, but it was great. And so I think that in order to do those things, that you do have to pay a little bit more, but it is a benefit. I didn't pay any more. I was just part of the trial I wanted to see, and I'll think about it for later, but it is one of those things where when you're posting and you need to do the visual description, it was helpful.
I was just thinking that, Leah. So you're saying that it would be with the paid version that you could upload a photo and say, give me a visual description.
Yes, and it's an increased cost. I already pay, but that's an increased cost.
Okay.
It's an extra benefit.
Another reason that accessibility is difficult, because people are making it difficult for us to access the tools, right? And I know that irks Leah and all of us. So, but that's very, very good point, that we could use Chat GPT as a lens. Oh, what did I say?
I just got to put my hand down.
Oh, okay. Just for us to say, is this accessible? Like we could say, how could I make this more accessible? But also I was thinking from an equity, diversity, inclusion lens also, especially if you're a white settler like myself, I might say, you know, I might test it that way. I'm not saying it's better than talking to real people, okay, and having conversations with real people and all of that, but it might be another little check for a lens, just to see, especially for those of us who might not be from, you know, a marginalized group, let's say, even though women in business are definitely marginalized, but, you know, it's something to think about. Denise, what are your thoughts? Oh, and I saw, Denise, that you had a question, so you might want to reiterate that too, if you want.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering with that specific feature of uploading an attachment, if that was like, if that would work for uploading a Word document and converting it to PowerPoint slides, because that's what we were really hoping that Copilot would have helped out more with. But on a completely different topic, just with something else that we found useful, and this was, I think, using Chat GPT. This was our marketing person has access to that Chat GPT. So because we offer sensory classes in Winnipeg and we've got various locations, at one point we plugged in all of the addresses of our participants to see whereabouts they were coming from within the city. And then that helped dictate where our new locations were, so we could be closer to those participants. So it could be a tool in your business if you're looking to see, you know, where are my customers actually coming from? And that could help potentially, you know, use targeted ads, or, you know, help better identify kind of the areas of the city that people are residing in.
And I'm going to take that one step further, Denise, and I'll try to grab the tool that I've used before. It's called Prism 5. Not prison like a jail, but Prism with a Z. And that is to if you know postal codes, you could actually ask them, if most of my customers are coming from these postal codes, what can you tell me about my target audience? Right? And ChatGPT, I can imagine combing the real estate information, which is out there and all of that, and producing almost like an ideal customer profile or a representative of your demographic, if it's geographic, let's say. So I can see it being used for that as well, to get an idea more of who that target customer is, if you have those such a tool such as the postal codes. Okay, go ahead, Denise, and I'm just going to do a quick search for that other thing. Go ahead, though. Oh, unless you're done. Is your hand still up?
Oh yeah, no, that was a good add-on. No, that's fantastic. I mean, and what we've been doing is basically, now that we're going into new cities, it's like, okay, knowing what you know, like you could kind of take your idea a step further. It's like, this is my target consumer. Where in, you know, Ottawa, where in, you know, Saskatoon should I be as a business? So yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Love that. So I'm just gonna put it in the chat right now. This isn't a Chat GPT tool, but it's a tool I've used to analyze my audience. It's a Canadian one, so apologies for anyone outside Canada. Well, you know, that's the most Canadian statement in the world, isn't it? I apologize, but anyways, it is a Canadian, and I don't apologize for it. But it's if you type the postal code in and test it with your own, by the way, it's free. It'll give you a total audience demographic of who lives in that that postal code. And there's 62 different profiles across Canada. It's a fascinating tool. I've used it often. Erin, you have your hand up as well. I wanted to go to you next.
Me? Hi.
Hi. No, sorry, the other Erin Thompson. Sorry, Erin.
I just wanted to ask a question, and maybe this is coming up later in the presentation, but I have some issues around security. So when you're uploading your own documents, that is your intellectual property, are you giving it to Chat GPT to then be used by the greater population? Because what I'm thinking is, because they ultimately own everything that goes into it, and you make that decision as you go up. So as soon as you say, yes, I want to use this, everything that you put in there then becomes an item that they can then give to somebody else. So your intellectual property, you have literally then not legally, have you not legally given up your rights?
Yeah, that's a question.
I'm curious about
Are
that
we
with all of these
signing
things.
over it?
Does anyone know?
Let me ask Denise, is that hand for this question or?
Sorry, no, I have to take that down.
Okay, I'm going to go to Tammy and then Denise, if you want to keep it, that's fine. Tammy, over to you.
So there's a reason why, and this goes for any computer program. There's a reason why Gmail is free. And there's a reason why when you order something on Amazon, they don't put what you've purchased, and you get the Amazon thing, your order's on its way. There's a reason why they don't put what you ordered, because Google reads all your emails. This is factual. I'm not talking
Yeah,
conspiracy.
that's true.
And yes, anything you put online is going to be accessed. And if it goes somewhere on the Ethernet, unless it's on a secured network that, big agencies have, you can consider it being used by whether it's Google or Edge or Firefox or whoever's going to pay for that information, because we are users.
Yeah. And they
Or-
might not trace it back to Aaron Thompson necessarily on the internet. They might, but it's just kind of goes into this information repository. And that's a really good important point Aaron has brought up. So let's not put things out there that might not be something. I can't, if it's going to be for public consumption anyways, maybe it is, but if it's, let's say, a client private report, I don't know, like, that's a very good point. Jade?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's a great question, Erin. And I think too, beyond the like the privacy policy stuff that Carrie was talking about, I think that like dives into the area of mindset around like, is there enough for me out of this pie, right? And I guess the way I look at it is that, and there's a lot of other people who are probably selling, marketing, doing the same thing that I'm doing. And I would prefer to have the benefit of my increased output to be more present in my market and use Chat GPT to my advantage with the risk, I guess, that, yeah, that information is out there. But in my mind, somebody else is probably doing the exact same thing as I am. Maybe their output's a lot lower though, because they don't trust it, or
Yeah.
they don't trust it. So they're limiting themselves by cutting themselves off from what I think is a really valuable resource. But I think that's totally a mindset thing too, which also is a really amazing conversation that we could pick
Yeah.
apart in a million different ways.
True. I mean, you might not want to put in, please reword my aunt's, secret recipe for my $1 million business. Like, maybe not patent, trademarked, secret information that might not occur to people too, right? So Aaron, thanks for bringing this up. Over to you.
I wonder then if that means that I would use it for things that I think are out in the market. So I'm coming up with an idea, but it's not necessarily unique. But if I was doing something like if I was writing a book or writing something that I really did want to copyright to myself, you
Yeah.
can't use it for that. You still need to get a real live editor and use a secure network and not send it through your Gmail and things like that, because
Yeah.
just because there are, and not everyone's using things for good, but if you really thought you were coming up with something that you wanted to be attributed to you, once someone can Google it, like, oh, I saw most of your manuscript out there.
Mm,
How in time will we prove that that was yours? That's not your
Yeah.
intellectual property and not just a generic idea. They could have Chat GPT'd for themselves. Why do they need you? Once it becomes a part of the,
valid. Yes, and that whole issue around originality is becoming more and more in question. And how do we create original works then if we are all drawing from Chat GPT, which is the downside? And there are downsides of this, right? For sure. Tammy.
Yeah, I'm gonna veer off a little bit from what Aaron was talking about, because there are so many. It's confusing to keep track of how many their issues are with Chat GPT. But with the paid version, kind of going back into the program itself, there's apps within the paid version that you can access. And like, while we've been talking, I just put something in. I've been working on a program. It's like, what, I'm gonna on like a new idea that I've had. And I saw that there's an app called Diagrams and Data. And I just made a flow chart, and it shows me the actual flow chart of my idea. And I literally put in a summary. Okay, here's my idea, create a flow chart, and it popped it up.
Mm-hmm.
I shared that information, like the whole idea, but there are so many different ways that it's not just words, and it's
True.
just images, but it's flowcharts. It's like, if you go into Explore GP, other GPTs, there's Math Solver, there's SQL, which is what you were talking about, Carrie, Image Generator, Scholar, Canva, Logo. Ooh, Logo. I might have to use that one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm the more I use it, the more I love it.
There you go. And I think it's, again, as a solo business owner, because it's so efficient. And I think it's good though that we keep like the 80% of it, it's the 80-20 thing, right? 80% of it is awesome. And then there's this 20% that we need to keep in mind. And as with anything, I don't even think the internet is 80-20. I think it's like 20 good and probably 80 bad, but well, that's a debate for another day. Okay, so we've talked about some of these as pitfalls for sure. Other tasks, and so I wanted to bring this around to the word tasks, because some of you might be able to visualize this better. What tasks, let's just simplify this. What tasks could we use this for in our business? And I know that we still use virtual assistants. We still outsource things like, well, I won't give examples. I'll just let you folks maybe come up with some ideas, but just in simple terms, in terms of tasks that we could, get off of our plate, perhaps. We've mentioned a few, but let's sort of signal that if we use that for some of the folks on the call who haven't used it yet, or maybe we're looking to expand that. I mentioned SEO, like building more SEO into your blog posts, for instance. Jade?
One of my favorite things to do that kind of applies to almost every area that I use this in is I'll put in like a thought or a point, whether I'm writing an email, creating more content, whatever it is, and I'll just say expand on this thought. And I might give it one sentence and then it kind of like fluffs it up. I call it. It fluffs it right up for me. Makes it look like more, sound like more. I kind of tweak it a little bit, like Tammy said, right? Like if it doesn't sound like me, or maybe I ask it to try it again. And the amount of time that saves me is like incredible.
Okay, so to fluff it up, that's the task that you can use it to ask it to do, or to expand on an idea. Tammy?
I used it to create my son's resume.
Ah, okay.
You know,
How did you do that?
I literally put in 25-year-old looking for laborer's job, create a resume that would help him find his job.
Like a resume structure, because obviously you would have to put in the actual stuff.
The whole resume. Yeah. So like we I think I actually uploaded the one he had.
Okay.
As one.
Yeah.
And it was just make this good for he wanted to move from factory work to, I don't know, this kid, but it was his resume that was rewritten.
So, and again, in terms of privacy, if you've already put that information on LinkedIn, for instance, that's not private information, it's already out there. But what you wouldn't want to do is put your SIN number in it. So there's like the difference, I think, the line you might not want to cross. And of course, your address would be in there, I suppose.
It's on anyway, so it's
on Indeed. Okay, yeah, gotcha. All right. Other tasks, simple or complex? We talked about blogging. Is there anything we're missing? Like there's sort of, you mentioned Canva, Tammy, and I can see this, how it would be like create a logo for me that, I've used Canva to create logos in the past. Aaron, the other Aaron from Mio Gelato, I'll let you go now.
I don't know if anyone else has an online store, but I use it a lot to like beef out my product descriptions on my Shopify.
I've heard that. Yeah. So Aaron, can you just actually explain that, how you would do that? Because I think I have heard that a lot from this product producers.
Yeah, so you can actually do it right in, like we use Shopify, so you can actually do it right in Shopify. So generally I do like a product description, and then I have them take the information I've already put in and beef it up. So like, for example, we did advent calendars at Christmas time, and I put 24-day gelato truffle advent, delicious, tasty, and let them do the rest.
Okay. I've also heard for people who have Etsy accounts, because Etsy changes in the way it wants you to do like this for crafters and makers. And so you could say, and use a voice for Etsy consumers, because that's a very different voice than Shopify consumers, right?
Yeah.
Etsy wants to see its hand, all the things. So that's interesting. And yeah, but you're saying it's right within Shopify that they have that AI tool.
Yeah. And you can change the voice too. So like you can be like playful or serious or whatever. Like we're gelato, so obviously we're playful, but if you were selling business lessons, then obviously you'd want a different voice.
I think that brand voice is really, really important. And ultimately you'll just check it to make sure it got it right. But yeah, you
Yeah.
can tell it the voice. So I'm looking just on my screen, I'm seeing Muriel on the screen who produces jewelry. And so I'm hearing like that might be a way to describe the jewelry, even Muriel on your Shopify or Etsy or wherever it might be. But it might be a different description even for both platforms because they're people, like I say, I've heard that Etsy consumers are just very different than Shopify or other e-commerce. Okay, very interesting. Any other tasks? That was a good one. Thank you, Erin, because that highlighted something we hadn't mentioned before. And it doesn't have to be for products only. Like if you were a business, like a coach, and you have products like services, you could tweak those a bit as well. Any other tasks that come to mind for people? Okay, so let me use this little bit of a ending for Q&A. Is there someone who maybe hasn't used it before, or maybe someone who just has a question for the group? Because let's use this forum as a chance to have some of our questions answered. Any questions someone might have about how do I, or there are no stupid questions. So great. And if it's in the Zoom chat, I may have missed it. Jade, go ahead.
I have a question, which I think was kind of talked a little bit about farther back, but has anybody ever tried asking Chat GPT specifically to create something like a PowerPoint document? I think it was Denise who was talking a little bit about Copilot and that her hope was that it could do that, but it couldn't. Does anybody know of one that can actually create the document so you're not having to copy and paste a lot of the information that you're getting from the AI, whichever application you're using?
Yeah, you could use Chat GPT 0.4, but it's $20 a month, and they can also like make your own logo as well as design like your packaging and stuff like that.
Okay, so maybe the more expensive versions of it.
Yeah.
Possibly. Okay. Any other thoughts around that? Because that isn't something I'd thought of, Jade, but it's a really smart one. Denise, was that a response to that question? Because I know you were.
Yeah, no, just to be clear, it did do that, but it just didn't do it in the way that we'd hoped. So it did offer an ability to upload Word, but it was just like very bare bones PowerPoint. I mean, maybe it was better than nothing, but yeah, it wasn't to the extent that we'd hoped.
Skeleton. Okay.
Yeah.
Muriel has a question. Go ahead.
Hello, yes. I'm actually going to be, oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm actually showing my own vintage collection pieces from all over the world, as well as my handmade Celtic knot in the GAN market, Saturdays and Sundays all summer.
Okay.
I was thinking of taking a video and incorporating it onto a website. Is this something I could do with AI in terms of incorporating, I don't know, drone footage from the internet as well as my own little video as a kind of a marketing, come find me here at Gananoque every weekend?
Like, would you be asking it to create a video?
Yeah, based on, because I don't have a drone. And
right.
I was thinking making a little video of the Gananoque area, as well as someone mentioned the map sighting. Here's where to find me, and then pictures of my vintage pieces as well as my new pieces, and a little intro.
Interesting. Will Chat GPT or some of these AI tools create a video? Has anyone tried that before?
There are YouTube videos and YouTube channels using AI, so I would think, but I'd want actual footage,
Well, it's for sure going to be the paid version, the pro version. I don't know what I'm hearing from Denise, even in the terms of, my dog is joining us, in terms of the PowerPoint, is that it's not super like great. Like it does it for the words, but I wonder if it's just not at that right now. I haven't seen or heard of that just in our circles. So Joanne, go ahead.
Find out.
Yeah, I think it's not Chat GPT. I think there is a video application, AI generated, and maybe, I don't know, but it would be a different application, definitely.
So it might pull from some of those drone videos and things like that. Now, you know, in terms of ownership of it, you know, I'm not sure, like, is any of that copyrighted? I don't know. Because usually when someone produces a video, it might be. Leah, do you have a answer, like, to add to this one as well?
I know that you can use it to put clips together to figure out what it is that you need to set up the structure. And then once I get the idea, I'm able to then edit things and put them together. But can the AI actually put all that video together for me? I haven't seen it yet in terms of the PowerPoint that we're talking about. Sorry, not the video, but I can clip things and sort of say, this is what the image that I want to have involved, and then it will write a script that will help me with that, but not do the whole thing from Word.
So Muriel, it might be a question even for the larger weekend community. If you were to post it in there, maybe someone's done it. I haven't heard of anyone who has yet. Interesting. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I want to get to here. Vanessa says, if you use information from Chat GPT, do you have to source it? APA style, etc. I'd say right away, if you're doing an academic paper, that would be a yes. Like, they're going to want to know where that comes from. Just from that background, but in general terms, I don't see anybody acknowledging Chat GPT like this with the help of Chat GPT. Although I noticed on Instagram now, it asks for you to credit AI if you've produced something with AI. And yeah, Vanessa says it's not academic, but yeah, that's something to be mindful of. Does anybody source Chat GPT when they're doing it? I don't think so. I think, like I say, if it's an academic paper, I would certainly, and you probably shouldn't use Chat GPT for an academic paper. Interesting question though. Go ahead, Kat. Oh, you're on mute. Is this an answer? Is this an answer to the same question?
I want to not answer with what we've been talking about. I haven't heard anyone say it yet, so I thought I'd bring it up. I was told it was last year that, and I do blogging for a fitness company and obviously for myself. And I was told that anything done with Chat GPT was being put down lower on SEO scores, especially if you're using a website. So I have to get around that you have to use you can Google it, a Chat GPT AI detector, and then you have something to humanize it. And these are usually paid. There's many out there, but now I have to humanize it. And I also modify it to the club as well. But I do that so that they don't lower on their SEO on their website.
Well, and I would hope like that we could humanize it ourselves as humans.
I tried that with some of it, but if you've got so much of it written,
yeah,
it recognizes a lot of the parts that are written.
Okay, so that speaks to the SEO problem then. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Yasmin says, what about bookkeeping, financial management? Is there any way to use it? Yes, can it do our books? That's what we want to know. And Tammy says, from what I understand, it would be a process. You could set it up for now. Tammy, maybe you want to speak to that.
Yeah, so it has to follow a set of instructions. But if you could, like, it might get smart enough to say, okay, read this. I don't think we're there yet. Like, if I enter this information, then will you put it here? But one thing that I've been looking at, and I don't think I would actually do it, I can create a whole webinar using AI and just give them the text, and they would have a head, whether it's male or female, you know, whatever gender, whatever race, whatever age, and have them present an actual webinar.
Yeah, well, very interesting. Yeah, so it depends on what you want to use it for.
You'd have a big team.
Pardon?
It would look like I would have a big team of people presenting. And now Carrie, then that's the scary thing. Like it could copy you, and I could say, okay, Carrie, now you do this presentation for me.
Wow, right? Yeah. And then we kind of get into all sorts of ethical territory, right? Which of course we know is where we are at. I'm going to use this question as one of the last ones, because again, it speaks to the legality. Are images are images generated by AI allowed to be used for marketing purposes? It made a funny image that I'd like to use. And so again, it's a attribution question. And just that made me think, Vanessa, of Canva, right? Because I have a paid version of Canva and I produce stuff in Canva all the time. And I don't say image created by Canva because I consider that I created the image if I literally went in and altered it. But if it actually created an image,
I think it would be a platform to make that decision at this point. Like
Yeah.
with laws, I don't think there's a law that says you have to generate it, but certain platforms, like let's say TikTok, if it's AI generated, it needs to be disclosed.
yeah, and Instagram has that now too. I saw it the other day. And I think back to Kat's point, I wonder if soon it will be detecting, right? And noting that, oh, this is not an original, and it just to wrap up today's discussion as well, Aaron, I'll let you have the last word though. It's like, it goes back to what's original, what's not anymore. And in our businesses, we do want to stand out as original. So if we build our entire business on Chat GPT and AI, I'm just going to say, it's not going to go well for us. I just don't feel that, and certainly not in this day and age right now, 2024. But so it's something to think about, that how much we're using it. And yes, it's good as a shortcut and to save time, but to build an entire business on this, to me, does not seem very good for us in the long term. Aaron, come on in with the wise words from Prince Edward County, please.
I don't know if that's what it is, but that's kind of my concern is as you build things and it's starting to recognize itself, everything you contribute is now part of its repertoire.
Yeah, true.
So where does anyone know how that's being regulated? Like, I'm really curious about the philosophy of AI. I'm really, really curious about this. And that's one of the questions that comes up because it owns everything that is submitted into it. It is its own content. So how do we claim things as makers as our own intellectual property? Once you engage, you gave it over. So I don't know how that's going to happen. And I'm just, if anyone has a better answer to that, I genuinely want to hear it because I am here for saving a ton of time and not doing all this stuff. I am. Sign me up.
I hear you.
But how?
I hear you. And I'll just add to that before I go to Catherine. If any one of you, and many of you are weekend clients, we do have an intellectual property trademark patent service that any of you can access for free. Okay. So if you want to have these IP questions, like, because I'm not an IP person, then we can set that up and that's absolutely free. So this might be a question that AI comes up and I'm sure it will. So by all means, I'm happy to connect any of you in terms of that question or others in terms of patents and trademarks. Catherine, over to you. Catherine, oh, there she comes.
Sorry, I was having a little trouble getting unmuted there.
No problem.
I am a lawyer, and I'm an IP lawyer, but I work for Queen's, so I can't give any advice to anybody outside the Queen's context. I can say that lawyers have a lot of concern about images and materials generated by AI tools. And one of the reasons is often it isn't original. I mean, AI tools are drawing from a body of knowledge that it's gleaning from the internet. And so it's quite possible that something it generates for you might contain a substantial portion of something that actually belongs to somebody else.
Interesting.
And that's a very an important thing to keep in mind if you're using it for things like logos or things that you want to have some originality in. You might find that it's not original.
Yeah.
And then this thought that when something gets put into AI, it kind of gets digested and gets put out there is also another valid concern. You don't lose your ownership of copyright in your works by uploading it to the internet unless you affirmatively assign it. So I would just be mindful of the services you use and the terms and conditions around those services.
Yes.
Read them carefully. Or what are you agreeing to when you upload something that's original and that's yours? Read it carefully. This is an evolving area. And right now, other than Europe, we don't have a legislative framework. Canada's trying to build one, but it's hard. And the feedback on the draft legislation was quite intense. So It's kind of a bit of a Wild West right now. And because of that, in the Wild West, I would recommend just be careful and be mindful, you know, of what you do and your activities. That would just be my general advice at this point.
I love that. Thank you, Catherine, for adding that perspective. And I think that that is absolutely a great note to end on, that there's a lot of opportunity here, but it is still the Wild West. And so just to reiterate for any weekend clients that might want to meet with the Queen's Partnerships and Innovation Patent and Trademark team, and Catherine doesn't have it, she's a part of Queen's, but is not on that particular team. But there for our business owners, you're certainly able to do that. There also is the Queen's Business Law Clinic. And so if you would like to meet with them at no cost, you can connect with me and I'll introduce you. The legality of it, if that's of concern, which should be on all of our radars, is important as business owners that we keep in mind. And I'd like to reiterate that I am not a legal expert, but this conversation has certainly brought up some excellent points. So we're at time. I want to thank you all for being a part of today's discussion. And I just wish you well. I wish you a very creative and an original type of the rest of your week. You're also brilliant, and I hope that you'll find the tools that just enhance that brilliance and connect you better with your clients and customers. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. If you want to revisit, this will be up on YouTube channel later today. Thank you so much. And if you're looking for the YouTube channel, that's in your newsletter. For those of you who get it, if you're not on the newsletter, just email me. We'll put you on it. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.